I've been an activist all my life. I believe I'm a born activist because I've been told even when I was a child I was always very vocal and I always fought for people. So I think this is something I do very naturally. But then when you're in a country such as Nigeria and you're very vulnerable and things are very open. When my kids were younger, I didn't care much because I could control their movements, I could control everything about them. But when they got older, I had to re-strategize because I can't control where they go. I can't protect them as much as, and I don't want my kids to fall victim for choices that I have made. I don't care for my life. That's the truth. I really don't. My husband finds it very weird, but I just don't. I'm selfless like that. But I care for them, and I care for other people. I don't want them to suffer for my decisions, like I said earlier. So when, especially ENDSARS happened with all the backlash and because a lot of what I said was misunderstood, and then there were a lot of, it was just weird. I'm used to death threats. Don't get me wrong. Look, you have
received death threats
many times before.
Because I remember that you're one of the first public figures that publicly protested under the Enough is Enough umbrella. I
we went to Abuja and we faced guns.
You faced guns. So I remember that vividly. So are you saying that in the course of those protests you received death threats?
Oh yeah. Yeah, but it wasn't, it wasn't anything that fazed me. And I also work with the UN. I mean, my husband was flying for Shell, and I went with Amnesty International, not even UN, with Amnesty International to London to go fight Peter Vossa at the time, who was the CEO of Shell. And my husband was flying for Shell, with, I think it was Aero Contracts or something, I'm not sure, with Bristol or something. So this is how much of my work, and my husband supported me. He was like, if you have to do that, you have, but know that we might be out of job soon, so, so that part was there. But, my point is this. I've always done what I needed to do, whatever my conscience told me I needed to do. I've also fought with Amnesty International for the Niger Delta degradation and all of that stuff. We've gone with the UN to countries like Liberia. I mean, I worked with Ellen Salin Johnson the first time she became the first female president in Africa. I was the first person that walked her on the streets. So I've done dangerous things in Sierra Leone and all of that stuff. And I've faced hardship and serious situations, but I've never seen anything like during ENDSARS. It was intense. The attack was very personal. It was my kids started getting death threats.
Wow.
Yeah, my kids started getting death threats. It was weird because I was part of ENDSARS. I was on the streets in ENDSARS. I was doing international advocacy in ENDSARS. I talked to CNN. I spoke with CBN. Even CBN carried that. Yeah. I was working with a lot of NGOs internationally. I was consulting with some embassies that I don't even want to talk about on air here. I was in a lot of work, and all of that stuff. And they turned all of that on me.
Wow.
And so when people now started visiting my home, yeah, people started physically coming to my place of work and my home, my old home, not my new one, to look for me. I knew at that time, I needed to worry about other people and not just me.
And not just yourself.
And so it became very clear at that time that I needed to re-strategize. And so instead of doing physical activism, I moved to advocacy.
Advocacy.
Which is just as powerful, just not on the streets.